Well, welcome to the first edition of the Reese Senior Bowl Film Room, a weekly series that we post every Thursday. And today we're going to try to take you back in the history of the sport and give you a couple of elements on offense and defense from a historical perspective that will help you learn more about the game when you begin watching football this weekend on both the college and NFL levels. Now today we're going to go to our virtual coaching board, and I picked this board up from Coach Homer Smith, who was a mentor of mine some 20 plus years ago at both Alabama and UCLA, and we're going to use this prop to teach you more about the game. So we want to try to give you a picture of the evolution of the sport, and what you see in front of you is one offense and one defense. There were only two offenses and two defenses back prior to World War II, and this is the Notre Dame Box, and that was the box element of the four ball carriers or potential ball carriers with five offensive linemen and two ends. The quarterback was a blocking back, the running back or tailback was the primary ball carrier, the fullback was a blocker, and then this wing back also was part of a blocker. The Notre Dame Box was built on deception. All of the play fakes, the reverses, all those sorts of things would keep a defense off balance. The other offense of note back in that day was the single wing. And the single wing was an offense that was not based on deception, it was based on power. So you can see how they offset the line, made it an unbalanced approach. They take one offensive lineman, bring him to the other side, and this single wing would be here off the hip of the tight end, and of course everything was full throttle, full thrust to the right. Now, the two defenses that were being used back in those days were the 5-3 and the wide tackle 6. Why is that important for you as a football fan? Well, number one, in this particular set arrangement right here, we have 5 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 1, 2, 3, and 3 defensive backs, 2 corners and a safety. Okay, that's called an odd front, where a man is covering the head of the center. Okay, that's an odd, a 5-3. The other defense of note back in those days was what was called an even defense. And this basically was a wide tackle 6, where there was no one covering the center. No one was covering the center, and this is considered an even front. You're going to hear on all of the broadcasts in the coming season the differences between an odd and an even. Now let's take it a step further. Once offensive teams got away from the single wing and the Notre Dame Box, and there were remnants of it that came through the years of football, Tubby Raymond at Delaware, and then of course Eddie Robinson at Grambling, and there are still elements of the single wing being done at the high school level. But the bottom line is that in 1939, a running back by the name of Niall Kinnick won the Heisman Trophy because they understood the concept of what they call brush blocking. So they would release up and block these defenders, option this end man, and Niall Kinnick would take a pitch all the way down the boundary to go win the Heisman Trophy in 1939. Now, during the World War II time frame, there was a school called the Iowa Pre-Flight School. There were some great coaches there. Don Faroe of Faroe Field at Missouri. Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma ultimately was an assistant coach on that staff. He carried this system, the T formation option system, to Oklahoma to propel the Sooners to 47 wins in a row. When he got to Oklahoma, they were trying to play the 5-3, and then they were trying to play the even front against this option style of offense. And Bud Wilkinson and his staff came up with the Oklahoma 52 defense. And that's where the center was covered, and they had 4 defensive backs that were tied and played in unison. And once the offense started to the right, this corner would rotate into the backfield and try to disrupt that pitch to the outside, and the secondary would rotate with that hard playing corner. If the option came the other way, then this corner would rotate up and the secondary would rotate with him. The key to it was that the offense, if it was going in that direction, could not get this backside linebacker cut off and a corner was playing in the face of the option. That was the precursor, and that's why it's called an Okie to this day. The precursor to the 3-4 was born in the late 1940s and 1950s under Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma. Now, the other aspect of this that I want to get to is the fact that we had the even fronts. I talked about the wide tackle 6 a moment ago. Remember that that's where the center is uncovered, okay? And in this scenario right here, the wide tackle 6 inevitably turned into the 4-4. 4 down linemen, 4 linebackers, with these 2 defenders being involved in run support. One final note before we go any further. At some point, to take these players out of the mix, at Army, a guy by the name of Bill Carpenter was split as a wide receiver. He won a Heisman Trophy because he was beating man-to-man coverage on the outside at the U.S. Military Academy. He won the Heisman Trophy in 1959, and it was not until the 1960s that pro and college coaches figured out how to double team the X-receiver. But the first split end was Bill Carpenter at Army in 1959. So that's a quick picture of odds and evens on defense, and then offensively how we morphed from the single wing in the Notre Dame box into an option style of attack, and you will see that this year in college football, but quarterbacks are doing these option type of plays from the shotgun and the pistol.